Good afternoon. It's Friday and the weekend has started. This can only be a good thing. I'm so glad I only had to do 5 hours today. For those who didn't know, I've been off with stress for the last few weeks, and this morning has reminded me exactly why I've been off with stress. I'm so glad it was only 5 hours. I don't think I could have coped with more. I was losing my marbles somewhat towards the end, rather strongly. My parents, my father especially, always said that I didn't suffer fools gladly, and he was right. I don't, and I know this, and it's not that I want to be horrible, but there are times when there are things that you just kind of don't feel you need to explain in the word. I mean, if I was going to teach you how to make lace, if you are primarily left-handed or right-handed, it matters not, because it works out roughly the same in lace making. Unlike knitting, you don't really hold something in your right hand and not your left, or there are no one particular hand that has to do an action. So it's not like, if you're left-handed and you wanted to copy, that you would find that hard. You can always use your left hand, and it's kind of, it's good that way. However, if I said to you to pick up a bobbin, you wouldn't expect to have to explain how to pick up the bobbin. I mean, if you were teaching a computer that had no idea what bobbin was or what the word pick up meant, maybe. But when you're talking to a human being of, adult age, there are certain things in times that, if I was giving you instructions on how to drive to my house, I tell you to get on a motorway, I tell you to get off at this junction, I tell you to take, the first left or the third left or whatever, there are things you don't have to explain about driving because, you think they should know that, right? And I struggle with this. I struggle with this deeply. And and the worst part is I had written, I'm not going to say to the extent that they maybe want, or these particular people maybe want, but I had written what I would call fairly dummy level documentation on some stuff, and I noticed just before I went off sick that it had gone missing. It wasn't where I thought it was, and I don't know quite what happened to it, because I didn't bother keeping a copy anywhere else, because, frankly, no one else in the world would need it. So I am somewhat limited by the fact that they've not got the documentation I wrote. I don't really want to have to write it again. But it's a bit like trying to explain to a toddler that 1 and 1 is 2. And they don't get it. And it's kind of like, how can you not get it? There is 1, there is another 1. You count the things and you have 1, 2. So you have 2. Why? Because you do, right? And I'm struggling with this. I truly am. And I will say I don't believe it's entirely their fault. They're certainly not helping, but I don't believe it's entirely their fault. What I do for a living is not what they did for a living. But, now they have to do it for a living. So, like it or not, you need to try. It has always... I mean, I went out with a guy years ago. And that's a bloke, lovely bloke. Really was. But he was very different to me. And it's part of the reason it didn't work. Was because of how different he was to me. When I stopped working, I sit in front of a computer and I play with it and I try things and I do things. He did not. This was not his bag. Now, to an extent, that's fine, you think. Well, that's not really a bad thing. Well, you say that. He was a computer programmer. How can you be a computer programmer if you're not curious how things work? If you're not wanting to try and make things better? And he didn't even own a computer. So at home, he didn't have one. And I lived in a house full of geeks. He was the least geeky of all of us. And the guy who got me into what I do was there. So he's definitely a geek. He's the bugger who put Unix on my computer before Unix was really a thing. Well, that's not quite true. It had been a thing for a while, but DOS was barely a thing, and he put fucking Unix on my machine. So Windows certainly wasn't a thing at that point. So that's his fault. I blame him for a lot of things. There was another guy who was IT dude. He was a head IT dude for Thorny MI for years, before Thorny MI disappeared off the face of the universe. I always wonder what happened to that. But the four of us lived in a house. So I'm a geek. These two other guys were geeks, and then there was this guy who I can't honestly tell you what he was interested in. He was really interested in Japanese stuff, allegedly, except that he also didn't. Hang on, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Because he did one of the martial arts. Forgetting which one. It's not. I keep thinking of karate names. It wasn't karate, but he did Aikido. There you go. He did Aikido, and but he never did a whole class. The single time I knew, I never saw him go to a class. So I'm not quite sure how that worked. But the only time I did see him do it, he was working in London, and he was working a very high paid job. Envy of that, don't get me wrong. I was earning about 11 grand a year. He was earning 50 something, so very much envy of that. Anyway, he did come home one day. The only day he ever came home on time was so he could go to do an Aikido demo. Every other day he was working till like 10, 11 o'clock at night, and would work Saturday and Sunday. I need to point out that for working for Sunday, he could earn more for one Sunday than I earned in a month. Okay? That's 1, 2. Anyway, it's the only time I ever saw him do it. But he was fascinated with the whole Japanese language, and he was learning Japanese, and kudos to him. That was the only actual thing I ever really saw him show proper interest in. He was not into computers, but it was his job. And one day, we were to go out for a meal in London with some of his friends. So I got a train into London to meet up with him. And he was still working, and he was staring at his screen, swearing at it, as we do. Bear in mind, I'm also a programmer. And he was struggling with it, and I watched it. Now, you do not have to be a computer programmer to follow this logic. The actual line of code said, if this is true, do this, else do that. And, well, it wasn't doing what he expected. Now, it wasn't if something is true and I was shortening it. No, it literally said, if variable equals this. There was no, I wasn't shortening it to, if it's Tuesday and the sun is shining and, the colour of my pants is blue. No. It was literally, if variable equals this, go do A, else go do B. And it was doing, quote, the wrong one. Well, logic states then that if you're expecting it to do A and it's not doing A, well then variable can't equal what you expected. Or if you expected it to do B, variable must equal A, what it said, because, well, it's doing the thing that it said, you know, when doing the other one, you know. There's only two choices at this point. It took him 3 days to work this out. Now, we've all had blindness of things, can't see the wood for the trees and all that kind of shit. You know, that is definitely a thing. You know, most people have had some level of that. But there's some level of that, and then there's being that high paid and supposed to be highly good at one's job and doing that, right? And so I kept to myself that, well, because, you know, who am I to argue with the great goodness that is, you know. 3 days later, I found out what the problem was. Oh, great, what was it? The variable wasn't the value I expected. And I'm sitting there going, yes. Wasn't that the kind of... I was expecting him to say he knew that, but he couldn't work out why the variable wasn't the value that he was expecting. Now that is very much a valid question. It's not that I realise that it's coming in as, you know, not true or whatever, but I don't know why it's not true. I'm expecting it to be true. But then it's not necessarily your code that's wrong. If for example, on a sunny day, the window will be open. And your routine goes, hey, weather system, is it sunny? And it goes, no. So you don't open the window. If the weather system says no, but it's sunny, it's the weather system that's wrong, not your code. But he spent 3 days on that, which I found slightly surprising because, you know, like I said, it wasn't his code that was wrong. And it always worries me that, you know, I'm not saying that he was not good enough at his job. They obviously thought he was. They didn't fire him. But at the same time, he did get into a lot of trouble. He made the same silly mistake 3 times in a week, which was he deleted the whole server. But it is one of those weird moments that I struggle when, well, how can you not see that? You know, if X is true, then do what? A, else do B, and it's doing B and you expected A, well, X is clearly not true, because, well, that's the route that it's found. Why it's not true, yes, that could be a very complicated, because, you know, maybe you go to the thing that decides where X should be true, and, well, it's setting it to true. Or is that then not being called? Is it the value changing in between time? I mean, there are a whole host of questions. But when you're purely looking at your bit that says, if the sun is shining, open the window, and it's not opening the window when it's sunny, because it says, but when you test it, it says, I am not sunny, well, then, you know, there isn't really a lot to think about. And I've always found these people weird that they would be in IT and, well, how can you be in IT if you're not naturally that kind of inquisitive person that says, why does it do this when I do that? What causes this to happen? Can I make it better? And so, yeah, I am struggling. I am struggling today because I explained something. I gave them a very simple instruction. and they weren't even listening. And I don't know quite what to do when you give them 2 words and they can't remember them. What do you do? Part of the reason I was stressed was because one of them couldn't remember 3 characters for more than 10 seconds. I just don't know what to do with myself. I just don't know how to work down at that level, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean, my dad never was around for things like Twitch. But if I'd said to him, go to Twitch and search for Liz Kimber, no spaces in it, I'm pretty sure he could have found me. I wouldn't have to explain more than that. He'd find see a search bar and click in it and see what happened. And they don't have that inquisitiveness. They must be, and I don't get it. I really don't. And I know that's my problem. It's also their problem, I think, to an extent, but I appreciate it is a failure on my behalf. I'm not going to deny that. But I also can't help but think it's also one that's not really my thing to deal with. I don't know, I find it very difficult. But at the same time, when I get a user phone call, so from someone genuinely a user, not from someone else in IT, because there is no expectation that they would know, I find it very easy to explain to them. But they want to know. And I think that's my difference, is that they want to understand why their thing did something wonky. They are keen to understand what caused it, what can be done to stop it happening again, things to look out for. They seem to want to know, and it's very difficult when they don't. Inevitably, I'm sure there are users who don't give a crap and will just shout and swear and kind of do the "don't you know who I am" kind of thing. But for the most part, if a user's mailbox is, if they corrupted their PST file, or they've, some file's been removed, or, because it had viruses in it, or something, and you go, if you explain to them, right, your file seems to have gone missing because it has a virus in it. Your computer tells me that it's, found a virus in this file, and so it's moved out of the way to stop you playing with it because it's bad for it. I'm not going to go, oh, what can I do about that? So they automatically kind of want to know, what can I do to stop this happening again? Well, stop going on porn sites, gambling sites, whatever. But, it is that they have this kind of like, are there any steps I can take? What can I do? Things I can look out for. Whereas it truly feels at the moment that the people in question I'm struggling with don't have that kind of, so what can I do instead? What should I have done? What can I go and read about? What can I, it just seems to be, you didn't show me that. I didn't show you how to breathe. You expect me to do that while you're at it? I mean, I know it's being slightly facetious, but it feels like that. It feels like, yeah, but I didn't show you to breathe. Can you stop doing that then? No, you know to do that for yourself. Well, as I say, I'm being facetious because it, I find it very hard, and I really do struggle. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think part of the other reason I struggle is because I keep being told by various people how great they are, but they're not great. Have you yet to see something that aren't great, other than winding me up? It's a bit like, mummy of child who believes she's got like a prodigy when the kid can barely manage to pick his nose. It feels a bit like that at the moment. Little Johnny's actually a window licker. He's at the back of the class licking the windows. But mummy believes that, frankly, he's the next Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Where's my scissors? He's the kid at the back eating the crayons. They're not stupid people. Hello! Thank you for the follow. I am ranting about my daily life. Feel free to rant about your own. Because frankly, I am winding bobbins. You aren't missing anything, by the way. Look, I have wound 2 bobbins and I am currently about to wind another one. There isn't really a lot to watch in the prep bit. The prep bit is very boring. We do occasionally work them into the other bobbins, but I could have 4 first. Yes, indeed, windy. Sounds more like a meat grinder, I know that, but Oh. It is. I do occasionally do it by hand, but I try not to. Because you can make such a beautiful... Look how nicely aligned. Actually, you probably can't see them, they're too bright, but they're beautifully aligned. And I can do it by hand, but it just takes so much longer. So, bobbin winder to the rescue, frankly. This. Then we need to make it a bit longer. This. That. And then we need to trap these 2. Why do we need to trap these 2? Because we need something we can tug against a little bit to get a little bit of tension in it, because it's really hard. Lace making is generally about tension. So what you do is, so you see now, although it's not fully trapped, it means I can kind of do this and they don't just slide around the pillow. So yeah, I've thrown another pin on the floor and the one bites the dust. I should pick that up in a second. Let's put this in here before I forget. Let's see if I can find it on the floor. Grab my magnets of doom, for I have magnets. Because this is the easiest way to... usually find it. I usually see it. Now I knew I chucked one because I saw it, but I'm not finding it. Yeah, well, whatever. One less pin. Oh, there it is. Ta-da! Pin. Right. So welcome to the madness that is my stream on a Friday afternoon. For the weekend hath started for me. This is a good thing. I like the weekends. The weekends are good. Pins. And we are just starting strip number 2. Well, I say just starting, we are populating the bobbins for stripping. Winding them takes a little while. So far we've spent about 4 hours or so stripping them of their old content so that they have new shiny thread for a new shiny strip, and plugging them in the various pins. So it takes a while. Lace bobbin stuff is not a speed sport, sadly. I mean, it's not too bad, but it's bad enough. So, do you do any crafting, Tom, or are you just a watcher of weirdness on computer? Many viewers are generally just, you know, this is completely alien to them, but they come along for a laugh. And if you heard my stomach then, I apologise. That was a really good rumble of it. Short, so I'll make you a bit longer. Way! Awesome. That's good to hear. You're allowed to critique my work. I am no guru. So I'm making a neck curtain. I originally started off making squares, but then decided it would look too much like crochet granny squares with huge joins in between them. So I decided not to do that, and now we're making strips instead. Interestingly, I found it weird that in making a square with the same number of bobbins, cold dog nose on bear bit, sorry, it's alright, dog. Dog's nose found a cold bit of skin. Strips quicker. Don't get it. Don't understand why, but strips quicker. And it's not even the turning of the square, because, well, that doesn't take very long. It just seems to be strips quicker. So, even though I got halfway through, potentially making the squares, because I had half the number of squares I needed for a curtain, I will still finish this before I would have finished the squares. How does that work? How does that work? Let's put you in a stick. Put you out of the way for a minute. Put you over there. Now we've got you. We'll just work with you for a minute. By the way, I made my bobbins, in case you're wondering where I got my bobbins from. I made them. I started off with these hardwood sticks that I bought from Amazon. The important thing to note is when you look at the top, it must not be the bamboo ones that look like they've got holes down them. It should have grain of wood, like actual wood, because these are stronger. So, I mean, if I can't push any harder than that, and I can't snap it while holding it like that. Very much. Prep work for many hobbies is ball-achingly long-winded. So I'm also a weaver. If you look on YouTube, you'll see I start with these. I paint them black with a rather delicate little Sharpie. This one. This is called a Magnum Sharpie. This thing's huge! Look at the size of the end of that. I mean, you know, frankly, I opened that and already I can smell it. All right, it's a little bit much. Painted them black with Sharpie. Coated them in. I then put I've got metal beads because I wanted heavy bobbins. Most people don't want heavy bobbins; they want light bobbins. But I put the beads on, so they're just glued on. Bit of super glue. Got some bead glue. Look. There you go. I have bead glue. Glued them on. I put ball bearings at the top because I wanted the round rosy bit. You could of course just put a bead. And well, I then did varnish them to help keep the Sharpie on the stick, and ta-da, bobbins, cheap as arse. Look really expensive, really are not. Oh, and for those who were watching last night, I mentioned that there is kind of a hooded bobbin that is more like a lip seal. So the top, whereas this is a stick and this is kind of a cylinder that sits over the top, there's a hooded bobbin that this kind of slots on like a lip seal. I haven't got a lip seal to hand, but actually this will do. I mean, I know it's the wrong way round, but, and this screws on, so ignore that it screws on, but there's like a base with a post inside it, and you put the top on and it just slots on, and then you twist it to lengthen and shorten it. I did buy them, even though they were really expensive, so I did buy those. I did buy some of those as an experiment. Not many. Oops. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I understand that. I've got some square ones. Two, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, I quite like square bobbins. I've got some square bobbins. I've got lots of bobbins. But part of the reason I like these is I really hate spangles. I hate spangles so muchly that it's immeasurable. Whereas these have a lot of weight to them. And they don't, while they can roll, they don't tend to. And so I don't tend to have too much problem with it twisting the thread. Even when I move them around, they don't tend to twist too much. So I quite like these, but you could always put square bobbins on the end to stop them moving. Because of course, when you make your own, you can make them how you like. I really wanted to have a little, in fact, here they are. I wanted to have little silver loops in the middle to differentiate between the top of that and like the body. But they lied about the size, so I didn't do that. And when you hear me counting out, I'm counting in half meters, by the way, because, well, that was the easiest thing to set up. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All my beads are metal. There's a 7mm ball bearing at the top, but all my beads are metal. So they do seriously chunk. You know, a handful of them. Yeah, you know, this handful weighs more than an empty mug. They do weigh really good. There are times when weighing a lot would be bad. So if you use a bolster cushion, these are not the bobbins for that. Because they would dangle. Now, although dangling with a bit of weight is good, there's a bit of weight and then there's this much weight. These really are so much heavier than normal bobbins. They could work for that, but not as well. Personally, I would still manage to use them because I'm weird. But as a whole, no, they would be less of a good plan. But then there's one thing about Honiton lace. Honiton lace seems to be mainly flowers. And, well, I'm kind of not a flowery girl. So, I mean, they don't have to be flowers, but they do primarily seem to be into flowers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yep. And what you can't see is off. I've got a yarn holder with my spool on it, which is why you can hear it go whee every so often. Because, well, why not? Hang on. So let me do the spam bot thing before it times out. Report. Spam. Yes, it's spam. And now a spam bot. And we don't want them, and I am me. Yes. Go away, spam bot. Ban the spam bot. Deny the spam bot. Right. So yeah. I do think one of the advantages with bobbins, of course, making your own is you can make them as long as you like, fat as you like, thin as you like. You know, if you wanted to make them out of meat skewers so they were incredibly thin, you could do that. You could make them fatter if you wanted to make them fatter. Buy dowel wood and chop that into chunks, or just buy dowels. It is... you can colour them. If you've got any artistic talent, you could decorate them. Which I have none, so we won't be doing that. But, you know, you can paint pretty patterns on them. You can, you know, colour code them. You can do all sorts of things, really. Advantage of making your own. Plus, they don't cost that much to make your own. Really doesn't. Because these beads were metal, they were more expensive, but I still think they're less than 67p a bobbin, whereas most normal bobbins are a minimum of £1 something, and of course, you know, you can get some that are just ridiculous. For example, the bobbins that I bought yesterday, I've been umming and ahhing about it for ages, and I can't really justify the cost, but I did it anyway. They're kind of a new take on the hooded bobbin. So, as I said, they work more like a lip seal, but they've got two holes in the hood, and as you twist it one way, obviously you're twisting the thread on so it gets shorter, and as you do that it gets, you know, whichever way you wind them obviously, but you twist them the other way and it unwinds. And so, you know, with that in mind, it really does keep the bobbin clean, and out of the way of your grubby little hands, so you know, it's a good thing. And do this every time. So yeah, but when it costs £56 to buy 8 individual bobbins, because they're £8 something each, and then basically the same again to ship it, I'll only be buying the 8, that's for sure. That's just expensive crap. I will not be buying enough to do something like this, but I can buy enough to do a bolster pattern that I've got in mind. Because I would like to try some, and I would like some, and I've been eyeing them up for ages, so you know, it's not that it's a bit of a whim, it is something I've been staring at for months now and going, I'd really like those. I just couldn't really justify it, and I still can't, but I did it anyway, so it's the way it goes, you know. Work clerks are good. Work clerks are good. Welcome. I don't tend to talk about lace hugely because, well, most people coming in aren't of lace variety. But if you do have questions, you're always free to ask questions. You know, it's one of the most important things is you can always feel free to ask. I may not know the answer, of course, but you can always ask. Okay. Well, that's a good thing. At the moment, we're not doing so much the clicky-clack stage because we're winding the empty bobbins to be full of bobbins. So I'm making 39 inches of a roughly 3-inch wide strip, and I'm making 7 of them because I am making a net curtain, and I am going to absolutely hate myself by the end of it, because, well, that's just the way it goes. We made a load of squares, and I have lots of squares. Let me show you what the squares look like. Hang on. That's what the squares look like. And as you can see, there's mistakes in it. I suck at joining the squares. And as Tom pointed out, it takes fucking forever to join the squares. And that's about a 15-inch, centimetre square. And lifetimes is the word for that. So one advantage of this is that you start at the top, you skim through to the bottom. And once you get to the bottom, you can just tie it off, because I'm going to put it inside a ribbon so that I've got a stronger edge for my top and bottom. Now, it's not going to be a very thick edge, but it'll cover the knots. And so that's the plan, right? And so I can just tie knots and chop and, well, stick it in a ribbon and I thought of that. So we have made one. Where is it? It's in this pot. Cool. Here is the previous strip, which will look a lot like this one. So yes, this is 39 inches of strip, and basically we're making exactly the same, but instead of starting and ending with the bigger motif, we're going to start and end with the smaller one, and then these will join together. This is the edge because it's straight, and we will just join them all together and call it a neck curtain. And when they join together, yeah, the square was a little bit... When I started, I had no problem with the idea of the join on the square, because obviously it's a square, it will look like a square, and it will join like a square. So like crochet granny squares, it will look like joined squares. And initially, I had no problem with that. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought that it would look a bit crap for a neck curtain. Because, well, neck curtains are light and dainty and shit. And, well, so hence we've converted to strips, because we have proved to ourselves that the strip can be joined in a much more glorious format. Now, we did try a number of motifs to decide upon how my strips would work, and I did get the internet to vote, and they voted, and, well, they picked the first two I made. Hey, Neck Kisser, how you doing? So this was the experiment. Now, obviously, for those who make lace, you'll realise that this experiment was not a small feat. But this experiment was, it's a bit of tugging here and there because it needs to be flatter. But I started at this end and I made this join. Now, initially, this join did look slightly better until I washed it. But this one, I made the bobbles on the edge by just looping thread over a pin. I did this with it, and then I sewed in kind of an S shape down thing, which meant that some of the bits of S were loose. And, well, this is what happened when I washed it. It kind of... Now, to be honest, if that was the end, the join like that actually looks kind of deliberate and okay. Had no problem with it. But I had an idea and made this one. Now, this one looks really good, except for the fact that there's a bit of a kind of a line, and then there's like this slightly open hole look. And part of the reason it looks open is because, well, there is an extra thread thrilling it up. So then we move to this. Now, you can still see it, and in some places it shows more than others. So, like here, it shows a lot less. But when you actually look at it in person, it really isn't that obvious. Now, to be fair to it, it should be, because you've got hole of pairs of twisted threads, hole of twisted threads. So you've got two threads twisted together to make a loop. They butt together, and you take a third thread and wind round this one, down through that hole, wind through this one, up through that hole, wind through this, down through that hole, and work repeat. You then come back doing the same, because this one I only did it one way. This one I did both directions. So there is a third thread all the way through. So there is an additional thread. Now, for the astute amongst us, why did you make it so that there were two? Well, because it's torsion. You can't really not have two. You can't really have one bobbin for the edge like you can in Bucks Point. And I really wanted to do it in Bucks Point. I was going to try it in Bucks Point, but I did come across a problem, which is that trying to do Bucks Point in strips like this without a proper edge on it, if you so much as make the tiniest little fuck up, because in Bucks Point you don't enclose the pins, when you want to reverse back, it's much easier to get in a pickle, because the thread can move as to which pin it thinks it's associated with, because it's not really held by the pins. The pins almost are irrelevant. They're not irrelevant, but they're almost irrelevant. And so we tried it, and we got down to about, I don't know, I think it was one of the smaller ones, but we got down to kind of like here, and I fudged it up, and I tried to go back, knowing that I'd been right before. So when I got to say here, I'd lost a pair somehow. So I'd go back so that I was working on the next one, and it didn't look right. So I go back a bit more. It still didn't look right. Go back. I ended up going back about 2 centimetres and it still didn't look right, but I knew it had to be. But then when the moment I tried to move forward, it didn't work again. And so, knowing that I've got to make, well, 273 inches of strip, this did not seem a good plan at the time. My sanity clearly would not be very pleased with myself if I got to like inch 38 and effed it up and couldn't work out how to fix it, right? So, hence we stuck with torsion, because, well, it is a lot easier to go backwards. It still has its moments. The last strip has 2 that we know of mistakes in it. But the problem is if these 2 are my motifs, I got to here before noticing that the problem was way back here. And I'm prepared to go back a bit. We've gone back a bit and we've fixed a few problems. Not going back that far though. My sanity, I mean, Tom will understand, you know, if you got to the end of 90% through sewing up your square and you chopped the ends off and everything and then you discover you effed up a bit, well, you ain't going back and changing it now. Not after all that sewing. There are times, and my general rule of thumb is, I have a number of pins. These are my collection of pins that give me a roughly, you can't really see it, about this much of a barrier between the live edge and the working, you know, the worked piece. If it's made it out the other side of the pins, I am not going back. That's the easiest rule. If I've taken the pin out, it's done. It will live like that forever. So far, most of the problems have been at the sides because they're easier to fix. But this one was in the middle, and I effed it up, and not pleased with myself. Because we all know that forevermore I will look at that curtain and go, look, it's there, as we all do with mistakes. I mean, do not get me wrong, this has got plenty of mistakes in it. This was deliberate before anyone else. But there are plenty of mistakes in this one. You can see them. Look, there's one there, because that doesn't look right. It looks different to all the others. There's one there. That's a bit big. There are mistakes. There are mistakes on the edges. There's mistakes in the middle. And the worst thing is it's really illogical because, well, lace making is very repetitive. How do you screw it up? I mean, it's only 2 moves: left over right, right over left. How can you screw that up? You can really easily. But we are making strips, and we are about to embark on strip 2. Technically, I only need 6. For my window is actually only 18 inches wide, but we are making 7 because that way my curtain will be symmetrical. And even though I don't technically suffer from OCD, we all know that it is far better to look at something that is symmetrical in situations like that, because then the curtain can be either way round and you won't go at it when you see it. It is also going on in my window. I'm not giving it away to anybody. It is purely for my own life. Therefore, I will say, I've already worked out, I'm not going to look at this. Not unless I actually go and look at it. Because, well, if this was my bedroom, there's the landing and the stairs. There's a window here, and it's for the window. Well, I only see it when I'm going towards the stairs, which is first thing in the morning. Do you honestly believe I'm awake enough to be paying that much attention? And of course, on the way to bed, I come up the stairs and face away from it, and it's dark. I'm not going to be looking at my window. So hence it's a good window to do it for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is one of the other things that really bugs me about lace making is sometimes you screw up, and you can screw up really good. I mean, like all things, there's bits of you wondering how you successfully screwed up that bad, because frankly, if you tried to do it with your feet or something, you don't honestly believe you could have made that big a mistake. And why didn't you notice you were screwing it up as you did it? There are mistakes that show, and there are mistakes that don't really show the problem. So for example, when I do this, I do a cross and a twist. If I did a cross and forgot to do the twist on one of them, and then did another cross and a twist, it would still work out for the next stitch. So you can screw it up, but you'd like to think you'd noticed. Well, this is the problem. Sometimes the mistakes are not obvious. Sometimes they just, you're sitting there going, well, I ain't got any, you know, because with this you have like 2 parent pins, and the parent pins come together and make the child pin, and they work on a 45-degree basis. I'll show you in a sec, hang on. Let me just put this on my bobbin. Seems to be a bit of a mung bean sometimes. Right, so any one of these dots, let me zoom in and show you, hang on. Yeah, I know there's a picture of my hand, it's a bit big. Right, any one of these dots. If I wanted to do this dot here, let me get a pointy stick, hang on, pointy stick. Let's say I wanted to do this dot. I have to have done this dot and this dot. If either of these 2 parts are not complete, I cannot do this dot here without effing it up. So, you know, realistically, on this right now, if I zoom up a little bit more, if I go up here a little bit more, that's as far as it goes by me. Hang on, let me pull this down slightly then. Dink, so you can just about see the top. I can either put in another pair, focus on the pinhole, you stupid camera, come on. There you go. I can either put some new in there, and then I can work down here because I will have fed the parent pin, so that one comes to there, that one goes to there. There is a pinhole in here, look, there he is poking out. I could do him. I could do this one over here, or I can put in a new pair. So I do have choices, but you only have a few choices. Now obviously you can make a few more by doing things, but in essence there aren't always a lot of choices. And so, you know, while it looks really confusing, it's a bit like knitting. You either work the next stitch, or you're doing something with the next stitch that means you are skipping it, dropping it, but you have to do something. You can't just ignore it and, you know, decide to work 10 stitches down. Lace making, you kind of can. If you work in rows, you can arguably do any one of the next row in any of the orders, because as long as you pick parents, as long as the parents are there, you can do the child. So I often do the side bits and then make a V in the middle, and then fill in the side bits, make the side bits too long and fill in the middle. So I tend to do that as my working pattern because, well, why not? Hang on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Chop it. So yeah, it is just kind of one of those weird things, is that you can hide a number of sins. If you don't twist a pair that should be twisted, shows out like a sore thumb because you end up with parallel lines, not a twisty pair. But if you were supposed to twist it 3 times, not 2, doesn't really show. If you're supposed to twist it 2 times and you twist it 3 times, doesn't really matter. There is quite a bit of forgiveness and also a bit of rigidity in it all. But like all crafting, it is not entirely relaxing. Relaxing is not the word that comes to mind. For swearing, cursing, ranting, raving, hating life, unpicking, waste of time, you know, all of those kind of things that we do to ourselves are very much apply. Because, well, they do. For with all the best will in the world, you know, going back and undoing, and you know, the last God knows how many hours worth of work is never something you look forward to doing. It just isn't. It just really, really isn't. So I'm not going to pretend that relaxing is definitely not the word I would use. I do love the end result. I'm not a lace person though, which makes this hobby really stupid for me. In fact, really stupid for me. But I do find myself, I do enjoy doing it when it works. I enjoy designing it because this was a design of my own pick. I picked out the things, I put them together, I printed them out, I'm pricking the holes in it. God help my arse. For those who do not do lace making, we start off with strips. We print them out, and there's the bottom. So that's number 3, that's number 2. So you strip them out, and they are very similar because obviously it's repetitive. It doesn't have to be repetitive, of course, but I chose to do repetitive because I thought that would be easier. Part of me wanted to kind of almost do the falling snowflake, so small and few at the top, getting bigger and more dense at the bottom, but can't be asked. Sanity and all. Yeah, I mean, I can't explain why I craft. I just do. I don't seem to enjoy doing it because I swear a lot as I do it. I rant and rave and mutter and damn and tut my whole way through it. I do like looking at the thing I made at the end. So as an example, here is a work in progress for tatting. Now I am not a tatting guru. I cannot use tatting shuttles. I am absolutely mung bean to the hilt. I cannot do tatting shuttles. They just, everything about it. The shuttle's too big. The cords get wrapped around my fingers. It always looks wrong. I can't get the tension. Whereas this is needle tatting, and needle tatting works so much better for my brain cell. We enjoy that, well, as much as I enjoy any crafting variety. So I'm doing a bit of that in my spare time. But it just seems that, I mean, I think I had this want to make things. And the only thing is I like making things to give to people. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And as fellow crafters, you fully understand that you cannot talk and count. But even though it's only to 8, so it's only 4 meters, but there we go. But yeah, I have this unnerving want to make things, so I do many hobbies. The only one I'm choosing to stream really is my lace making, mainly because everything else has got a bit too much me in it. That sounds like a good plan. I like the idea of that. That's a good thing to do. I'm sure you'll all agree that one of the hardest things about being a crafter is that you get 3 kinds of people. You get the, oh, I couldn't possibly do that. Well, you actually probably could. Unless there is something physically stopping you, you could if you really wanted to. After all, can you pick this up and put it down? If yes, then you could do this. I have a burning need to make, and definitely far more need to make than I need to own. So I tend to give mine away. What I do, and can offer as a suggestion on that front, is you can kind of go, so for example, let me grab one of these. and try not to land something on the dog. Hang on. So, these are a bad example, but these were going to be tea towels. They're too thick, but these were going to be tea towels, right? And I made these. I designed it, I made it. And there are green ones, just like it on my loom as we speak. And I haven't touched it for a while because, well, I got sidetracked. Because God only gave so many hours in a day. I work for a living. And so I only have so many hours to do things. And currently I'm in a something else phase. Now, I tend to give away my tea towels. I make a lot of tea towels. I tend to give them away, but what I do say is if you would like to make a donation, I will give the money to the local dogs people, because I'm a big dog person. I will give it to a animal charity of my choice. And quite a few people have chosen to do that. And I quite like that because I feel that's a nice way of people feeling like they paid money and me not feeling like I demanded a particular value out of them, but that they knew that I was not going to keep the money, but that, you know, it kind of works out. And that's really quite cool. Now, the one thing that is quite surprising about homemade woven tea towels. Now, I use 8/4 cotton, which comes looking like this stuff. I mean, to give you an idea compared to my lace stuff, this stuff is quite thick. I use 8/4 cotton for it, and the reason for that is because, well, this stuff could absorb half the ocean, I swear. I had a burst pipe. Well, I had a man round to fix a tap, and the pipe kind of went and blew scalding hot water at his groin. Yeah, that was popular. Fortunately, and I do mean this, the guy could not be more blessed. This is the one time I bet that guy was relieved. He'd had testicular cancer and his testes were now made of china. He did not actually have testes anymore. It's just as well because we'd just boiled them with the water that came out of this tap. So, poor man. Anyway, it was pissing hot water all over my kitchen floor. And he goes, have you got anything to mop it up with? Yes, I said. Wandered kind of into the next room, came back with a handful of tea towels. And you could see him going, oh, that's not going to cut it. He put 4 of them down and all the water had gone. And he went, holy crap. And I went, they're good, aren't they? I mean, don't get me wrong, they weigh like a small child when they're done. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And before you ask why I'm only measuring in half meters when I need a meter, because my table isn't a meter long. I don't have a table that's meter long, and it's quite easy to measure out half a meter and then just count the half meters. So, counting half meters we are. And we're going with 4 meters because I think I had 5.5 or 6 and I had 2.5 meters spare. So either way, this should give us less spare, but still spare is the hope. One thing I do want to do is write a computer program that takes the pattern and works out how long actual thread needs to be. Because any lace maker will tell you that, yeah, you can buy pretty patterns and all manner of stuff, but not one of them will tell you how much thread they very rarely tell you how much thread you need with it. So, well, this was the thing. I mean, if I show you, hang on, just wanged my table, of course. Yes, I did. Hang on, put it back a bit. This was the leftover pile from the last one. Now, it's not the most expensive shit, do not get me wrong, but what a waste. Now, obviously there's going to be some waste because you need some on the bobbin to still wiggle the bobbin around. So there's always going to be some. But this is, well, the problem I've got is there's 84 bobbins. So if you say that, you know, and I did do a couple, I measured roughly 2.5 meters on each. Well, it is. Well, think of it this way. I've got 84 bobbins. If they each had 2.5 meters spare on them, that's quite a lot of meterage that I'm chucking away. Now, technically, at 2.5 meters, there is a chance there was enough on there to do another strip. But exactly. And weaving's worse, by the way. My current weaving loom, I need you to brace yourself, Tom. My weaving loom, all weaving loom have a waist, and the average waist is from, with a weaving loom, in case you don't know, there is a bar that comes over to the front that gets wound onto the front beam, and a bar that comes over the back that has the threads on it. Is the minimum distance that you can have between those two bars. And usually that is as far as the bar can come forward, which is usually limited by some part of the loom design, and how far this bar can come forward. So there's a bit in the middle called the castle, and as we all know, every bit of crafting has dumbass names, so the bit in the middle is called the castle, and usually it's the castle plus a chunk. Now, my current weaving loom, in its draw loom configuration, has a waist of, sit now, 72 inches per warp thread. So if you're doing 20 ends to the inch and you make a 30-inch wide piece of fabric, you've got 600 ends at 72 inches per end. Talk about wastes. It's like a fucking cone. And this started me off on the why shenanigans, and why we weavers hate the world, and why weavers as a whole would rather put on a 60-metre warp, so you only waste 72 inches out of a 60-metre warp, rather than put on enough to maybe make 4 tea-towels with a 72-inch waist, because, well, then you're chucking even more away each time you put new ones on. So if you can use the same one, even if you have to do some shenanigans, it's better to reuse the threads that are already on there and maybe ignore a couple than it is to completely start again. Plus, irrelevant of how much warp you actually put on there, I reckon it takes a week to set up my loom. So there's a day or so of winding it out on my warping board. There's a day or two of cranking it onto the back beam and making sure it's all flat and straight and shiny and brilliant. And then there's a while of counting out all the headers to go on each of the shafts and all the rest of it. And then there's another day or 6 of threading them on and then putting them through the headers, and then another one putting it through the beater, and then finding out you fucked it up and got to redo half of it, because you inevitably have. Murphy's Law, a bit like counting in any other thing. You fuck that shit up, even if all you had to do is 1 2 3 4 1 2 3 4, you can mess that up. So you end up redoing at least half of it. It is. Now you can unweave, much like you can unknit and unlace. And it is technically not hard. It can be harder if you manage to skip some threads, of course. That results in swearing as well. But it is one of those aspects that you've then got to undo half of it, because inevitably you didn't thread one thing, so now they're all one thread out. So you've now got to move them all. And there's no heddle in the middle, so you've now got to make one to poke the one you missed. Or somehow you skipped one. Now skipping one's fine, because you can... but again, you would have to undo it. But if you manage to have an extra one in there, extra ones are okay. Well, this is it. I mean... Oh, by the way, I totally won yarn chicken on my loom once. No. Oh, I should be in the Guinness World Records for this one. I actually have a picture somewhere. Hang on, it'll be on my photos. Hang on. I so won yarn chicken. I mean, you cannot imagine how much of a yarn chicken I won. This was utterly epic. Let's need to go this way. It's gonna be round here. Where's Trev's? Where's Trev's things after that? Oh, it's round here. I will find it, I promise, and I'll show you. Where's Trev's thing? More we're getting there, right? No. Where's my picture of yarn chicken? It's round here somewhere. Oh, come on. Why I can't have deleted it. I'd never have deleted that. It was an epic picture. There it is. I was going to say, there's no way I deleted this yarn chicken. Now, for this yarn chicken to make sense, I need to explain a bit. So, this is the back side of my loom, or my old loom. And these tufts that are pulling in that way are pulling to the front. This upright and kind of the bit with the light on it are the castle. And my castle there's the front. You can see just poking out the dark bit there. That's the front. This is the back. What you can't see is the front. Now, I don't think I've got a picture of the front. This is the front, right? So this was the amount between the beater when it's back. This is right against the headers. So I had like 4 inches of gap here. I've got... And then literally, when you lifted the headers up, they were literally lifting up like 1/2 inch because there was no room to move. This, most people would consider winning yarn chicken if the ends were halfway down the gap between here and the back beam, which is just kind of slightly off screen. So, but I literally, it was tugging in. If I'd been using this back shaft, this wouldn't have worked, right? But this was the front. And literally, I probably could maybe have done 1 row more. I literally was struggling to get enough of a space to poke the thread through the gaps, because obviously the little heddles that you can't really see very well in this have a little tiny kind of, I don't know, 1.5 centimetre gap in between them, so they hold the threads in that place, so they can, if they're in a place, they can only lift it up so much, and you couldn't make the gap anymore. But this is what I was making, so these blue ones. So this was a close-up of it, and part of the reason this is so cool is because it makes it, by the way, all the blue evens out when you wash it, but it makes this kind of brick-like pattern with the pattern colour, but you have not quite a normal weave looking, but close enough to the human eye. You get this solid black, whereas the actual technique is very much like, I scroll up a bit, this one. And as you can see, well, even in these photos, let's pick that one. Here, it's the same idea, but you end up with like the black poking through the yellow and the white poking through the black quite hard. Well, it's exactly the same technique, but you do it slightly differently. So you use basically sewing thread instead of normal thread. So hence, if you look really carefully on each of the blues, there's this really fine black thread, and that holds down what would be one big long loose thread over the top, but you actually do that over all of them. So this kind of brick pattern actually forms over all the others. You just can't see it because it's all black. Hence, there's a hint of blue because obviously it goes under there, so you get the tiniest tiny hints. But in the actual pattern, and you view it properly, you know, if I show, that's a picture of the dog. Hang on, I clicked on the picture of the cushion. Clicking on the cushion. There you go. But if you look at it as a cushion, it looks black and blue. You don't get speckles. So I love this technique, and this is what I was making. I was making 4 cushions, and disaster struck. After doing all of that hard work, my sewing machine ripped a fucking great chunk in my cloth. Words were had. Many swear words were had, because I'd made that, and it was the back of the cushions. And so it actually managed to do it on 2 of the cushions. So this is roughly what, so I bought some cloth that looks similar, but I sewed it up the cushion so they look like this. So there's a zip here at the top to let the stuffing out to wash it. So that's the back, so it wraps around slightly so that you don't see kind of the back from the front. But this is my cushion. This is the cushion I made. I made a set of 4 of these for ex-hubby with obligatory dog hair and dog. But these were my cushions. It does. This beige stuff was even better. Let me find you the end picture of the beige stuff. Hang on. I've got loads of pictures of other things, as you can tell. Where is the end of... So, where is... Oh yeah, the broken thing. That was an epic moment of my life I care not to relive. This is similar to the loom that I've got. This is roughly what my loom looks like. My current one. So as you can see, it's a bit bigger and a bit funkier. This is what happened to my loom. The stick here was supposed to be supporting it, broke. It fell, landing on me. And if I tell you those sticks were expensive, you know, here it is, broke. Here's what happened. It split and the thing broke. Yeah, this is my old loom. So this is what it looks like. So it's much smaller. As you can see, it's kind of the size of a piano. So that's the back beam. So basically I'd got it so there's 4 inches in front of like this mark here, and it was pulling in at the back. So I literally got it down to kind of like 7 inches or so. But my current loom is huge. But this is what happened to the brown thing. I made 2 identical things. They are identical, and you're going to say to me, oh, there's a different number. You did 1 short. No, I didn't. Count them. They're supposed to be the same, but they're not. It was going to be a bedspread. I can't sew that together and call it a bedspread. It looks shit. So I now have 2 random sheets that I don't really know what to do with. But I've got pictures of my loom somewhere. Hang on. I have more dog pics than you know what to do with. This seems to be going backwards the wrong way. No, maybe not. Hang on. Hang on. Let me show you my pillow while I hunt for this, because I haven't got anything. I have got a couple of pictures on there that you'd probably rather not see, such as my missing tooth and how that got repaired. That's a bit gory, you don't want to see that. So let me see if I can find a picture of my weaving loom. Should be further down here a bit. I know I've got pictures of it. Doesn't really let me search for it on the desktop one. Now that's me lace making, so I'm going to go back a bit more on that. Hang on. Shut up with the whining! Dog. Don't need that. Let me... It's around there somewhere. So bear with me one moment. Shouldn't be hard to find. I mean, there's plenty of pictures. So. That's me making the green ones. So let's go back. Chunk. That's me making the red ones. That looks like me building it. Oh no, I have built it at that point. So I have got some pictures of me of it built, but it's not very helpful. Well, here's a picture of it, but you'll soon get the difference between the size. So while this is viewed from the back with the thing attached, so I've attached to the back straps the thing. Hi Christy! So this is my current weaving loom, and as you can see it's a bit bigger because, well, the front is here. This is, well, towards the front, that's not even the front. It's basically the size of a Land Rover. It is huge, but it is a thing of beauty and marvel. But it also fills the room somewhat. I do like this warping frame. I had a lot of problems with this warping frame initially. Because you attach it to the back of the loom. The problem I had with this, and it's harder to explain, I have weird eyesight and there's certain things I can't do. I can't always tell if something's on top or below someone else, if it's the same colour, especially if it's a thread. But when I was doing this, you started here at the bottom and you go up, you go across and back and up, across and back and back. You get to the bottom over here and then there's a little bit that you can't quite see, much like this one, on the other side. And then you come back. This in itself, really not that hard. The problem I had was that I would do like one trip of all the way up, round and down and down, and all the way back, and I'd have to walk away. I couldn't do any more. And I couldn't really explain why I couldn't do any more. I just couldn't do any more. I just didn't feel capable of doing any more. But it's not strenuous. It really isn't. Until I put the blanket, so you can see a brownish blanket there. The problem was my eyesight. Because it's white and there's light behind it, my brain was freaking out trying to decide whether to look at the white threads that I was winding or the lightness behind it. The moment I put the brown blanket on, I think I'd done like 12 trips in 2 weeks. I finished all of that. That's it, done. And you're like, okay. And I did that in an afternoon in the end. But yeah, that's not the best view, but I don't really have a good view of my weaving loom. I do have some other views of it somewhere. There is one of it side on somewhere. But yeah, it's huge. It takes up the whole room. But that's my little baby. But it is very much a struggle. But I am currently wanting to make this more. So this is what I'm doing. I will make more tea towels because I've made loads of red ones and I'm working on a green set. I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do with them because they're not tea towels. They're more hot plate material, I think. But they're all Christmas designs, so they'd make good for going under the turkey at Christmas. They are that thick, to be fair. They would make great house insulation, as an example. Because they truly are overkill. You couldn't... I mean, you could wipe dishes with them and stuff, but you couldn't really do inside mugs, for example. They don't really bend that much. They're too thick. I miscalculated. I got a bit carried away, I think is the phrase. So, it's my own fault. I only have myself to blame. But I've got about another, well, probably 20 metres of the stuff on my loom. And without rejigging it all, it's gonna stay that way, so, you know. It feels wrong. Because it is. Near the end. Slowly getting there. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's like half done. And then we need another bobbin. And 1, 2, oops, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That doesn't feel like enough, but there we go. That didn't feel like I'd done it. No. Let's be slightly more generous on this end then, just in case. Oop, not. It knotters. Bad knotters. See if we can undo this. For it should undo, because, well, there you go. For it can't have actually knotted, but there's another one here. See if we can undo you. You're looking a little more stubborn. There we go. It's amazing how it knots up. Get in there. 1, does look like most of the gang's here. We're missing the bears, but that's okay. They're probably at work. Bailey is certainly at work. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight. So yes, it's good to see you all here. Always good to see you all here. Thank you. You're a bit long now. You sort yourself down in the dust. Let's make you just a bit shorter. Why are you being awkward? Yeah. That's probably a bit too short, but there we go. There we go. Right. Pocket pin. Should have 8 more bobbins to go. And I have 3, 7, 8. Yay, I haven't lost any. Hallelujah. Right. That keeps you quiet, naughty cat. You love it, really. I do think it is kind of funny how many of us do a hobby that It's hard to class as fun on occasions. I'm not saying it's not worth it in the end, but it's sometimes not exactly fun on the way there. You know, if you spend half your time mutter-damn-tutting your way through it, is it really fun? Is that really the word you'd use for it? But it's not that you don't like the output. I mean, certainly with lace, I think for me, the output and looking at the finished piece and going, I did that, and a good sense of pride of a job well done, even if it's got mistakes in it, is very much a thing. But I wouldn't necessarily say fun. Occupied, busy, mentally stimulating, in that there's lots of times where you sit going, how the name of fuck did it do that? And trying to work out how on earth it managed to do something that frankly defies 16 laws of physics, you know. Hello, Amy. Hello. Yes, madam. What? Yes, you. Ow. What? What have you done with Hefts? If you've lost another Hef, I will not be pleased. Where's Heffy? Oh, no, that's Octopus. Where's Heffy? That's Octopus. Where's Hefflumps? Where's Hefflumps? There he is. We bought a new Hefflump. So although Octopus is a thing, somewhere the original Heffy is hiding, but we have a new Heffy. And we are happy with new Heffy because we have Heffy once again. Now, I don't know what she did with the old one. No, I don't. I don't know what you did with it. So I remember you taking it into the garage and I couldn't find it in the garden. So I have no idea what you did with it. But yes, you have Heffy. You do. And his lordship here is... you can't tell. Really, Rory? I do love you, Rory. I really do. But is this really... He's kind of got his feet on my... his bum on my feet, and is kind of lying up between my legs, head on my chest. You have grown, little man. You have. I remember when you was littles. When you was littles, your bum was at my waist and your head was my shoulders. Yes. Don't they just? It's amazing how you... And it's not like they're not bright pink or something. You know, something that really glaringly obvious. You know, it's not like they're camo hiding in the plants in your garden. Mr. Paws here is a very lovely doggy. Yes, he is. But is this your new thing? Is this going to be a new thing? Yes, you've got to be careful how you squirm out of this now. There you go. That's right, his sister does wind him up. But yeah, basically, he was lying along my legs that were on the floor. So kind of resting along my legs coming up. And kind of leaning back on me. So I couldn't really do a lot because there was dog. Little Miss here can't see this. But this is her favourite object in the world. Which we hide, don't we? Because we're a little bugger with it. Yes. But we like Heffy. Heffy is cool. Where's Heffy? What have you done with Heffy now? And she does know what I mean. What have you done with him? She's frantically looking for him. What have you done with him? There he is. Has Rory got your Heffy? Has he got your Heffy? There is no death and beyond. Just to introduce my two to you who have not met. So the black one's Rory, the brown one's Amy, and they are actual brother and sister. Their mother and father were the same, they are of the same litter. They are actual physical brother and sister. They are not just, you know, termed brother and sister because they live here. They are actual brother and sister. And they fight like it. Oh dear God, do they fight like it. But then I knew that. I knew that when I got them because, well, they're brother and sister. That's what brother and sisters do. You fight, don't you? But you, young lady, are the biggest crackhead dog I've ever had. Out of all the dogs that were weird and strange, you, young lady, are... There is a screw or six loose in that dog. I'm not sure she actually came fully assembled. He is very placid, but should he decide he wants something, resistance is futile. For we don't let you trim our nails, and we know how to use them. Hence, you will notice that I have various scars as a result of trying. Or worse, the long Wolverine look was he gave me his paw while I was sitting on the can, and I thought I felt a lump of mud under his claw, so I picked it. That was the result. It was mud, but that was the result. I got lacerated by Flojo here. He is like the bird with the 3-inch acrylic nails, right? He has a thing for his nails. He likes them, and he likes to wield them, and it hurts. And he doesn't understand that if I haven't got my jumper on, I don't like it. Because obviously when I've got my jumper on, it's not so bad, because I then effectively have fur, and it doesn't hurt so much. You have scars too, don't you? Yes. From fights that you've had. Yes. You both do. Yes. You do. You do have little scars from your fights. Some of you have bigger ones and smaller ones. Yes. You've got quite a good one on your leg, haven't you, madam? Yes. But I love you two dearly. I really, really do. With the sincerest, bottomest of my heart. And I will love you forevermore. But can you naff off? I'm trying to do something. Can you bugger off? Oh. I've only got a handful more bobbins to wind. So, you know, and then we can be proud and do some actual just lace making. Actual solid lace making. Because, anyway, alright, let's count some. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Sooner we get this done, kids, the better. And yes, you will get chicken nuggets later. For it is nugget day. It is nugget day. For those who are new, I generally have a takeout on Friday because I've done streaming and got up early and done my day's work already before I've start streaming. So I reward myself for the weekend with a takeout. I am not a skinny person. I am not a my 600-pound lifer. I am definitely somewhere in between. But we do Takeout Friday. And I do... Hang on, 1. That looks more than 1. Hang on, let's try that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We do buying of chicken nuggets for the dogs. So it is their treat too. So we all sit down. Oh, stop the whining, woman. Mostly, if you hear dog noises, it will be her. He is almost mute. Now, he can make noises, but they are very rare. Occasionally, he will growl. We have had one instance on screen where he's got kind of PTSD from when he was in a dog shelter before I had them. And if something touches his butt while he's sleeping, he really does take that kind of personal. And he wakes up ready to kill whatever it may be. This could be me, Amy, a leaf, my toe, a blanket, a box. Doesn't really matter. But if it touched him while he was sleeping, it now needs to be removed from the universe. And as a result of which, he really does mean it, and he makes a lot of growly noises. And generally, he looks to kill his sister when he does. Even if she was nowhere near him, he assumes it was her, right? And I don't know quite what happened to him, but it affected him a lot. Because, well, they're 5 now and he still does it. He doesn't do it as much as he used to. This is just as well. But he still does do it. He has done that once on stream, woken up ready to kill, and I've had to try and pin him to the couch while on stream, which is awkward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But mostly, you will not hear a peep out of him. She makes all the noise. Her nickname is Amy Winehouse. Because we whiny gal. Yes, you are. No, I've got thread in the way. I don't need dog in it. And as we discovered last night, my brain has now come up with, for those who do not know, there is a song called Fog on the Tyne is All Mine, All Mine. Gazza did a really piss-awful version. And he should never have been allowed to pretend to sing. But dog in the twine is all mine is what my brain came up with yesterday. Yes. I do love them very much. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But like most crafters, there are times that the dog can do dog thing, and there are times that the dog needs to go and do dog things somewhere bloody else. And I do not need doggety assistance in lace making, that's for sure. I'm sure the garden man is here and I really don't care, Amy. We have a garden dude who comes to do our garden, but he's not here to do our garden today. But I've got a feeling he's come to do somebody else's garden, which he also does do because I got him and then everyone borrowed him. So he's not mine personally. I founded him and asked him to do my garden, and then kind of my neighbours went, "Hey, any chance you'd do ours?" And then the other neighbour went, "Hey, any chance you'll do ours?" So now he does the whole road. So I think he loves me and hates me all in the same kind of manner. Just because, well, that's a thing. Oh no, this looks to be the next door's kitchen, people. They've had a new kitchen put in. Bet they'll have takeout tonight. Even though they've just had a new kitchen. my neighbours are the best people in the world. I can never say enough about how great my neighbours are. When I was ill, so I had bowel cancer and I got rushed to hospital when moron who did my colonoscopy perforated my bowel, and tried to pretend that it was me being a pansy about it all. And I spent 4 days in hospital trying not to die, because he perforated it. And it is one of the most painful things. You know how like they always do, oh, well, this is one of the most, childbirth is one of the most painful things. Apparently a ruptured bowel is number one, right? And I'm not going to deny that. It's only friggin' hurt. The problem with pain in the human body, and this is something that was explained to me once by a very good doctor, is that the human body is not very good at comparing pain. It'll know that it bloody hurts. And that's kind of it. It is not very good at, say, well, 6 months ago you broke a leg. Did this hurt more or less? The answer is you don't know. It hurt. Thank you, bobbins and banter. So, because you can't really compare them, it is hard to tell. But I will say, as I could only just about shuffle, making, Granny on her walker look like, some part of the Indy 500, it sure did hurt. And when I went in and because I had no idea what was wrong with me, all I knew is I hurt like a mother, and I'd phoned for an ambulance. I had to wait 9.5 hours, and the ambulance finally showed up, and they kind of took some things and went, oh, your heartbeat's a bit irregular. And I'm like, if you'd hurt for the best part of 10 to 12 hours, so would yours. And she kind of went, fair point. Because he'd sent me home in pain, and they took me in, rushed me in, sat me in what we called the waiting for death room, because we were all in agony. We were all really kind of ill, and none of us knew exactly what was wrong with us. I mean, we all knew that it was our stomachs. We're not stupid, kind of thing, but because that's the bit that hurt. But most of us did not have a diagnosis at that point, and nor were we actually getting tests. We just sat there all day with no TV, no radio, only each other to stare at. So there is a thing, and I don't know, I start it all the time. I get people talking, and I'm chatty, sort of chatty as you can tell, but I'm not a people person, not very good in groups. But what I do is I keep people in hospital happy, mainly because I'm not. It's a bit like the comedian. Most comedians are usually depressed, and they're making people happy because that's what they need the most, and so they do it for others. And I kind of do so in hospital. I become a bit of the kind of ward clown. I very quickly pick up on where things are. So if so-and-so needs something, like a bedpan to pee in, I'll go and get one. If so-and-so's in agony and can't reach the bell, I'll happily ring mine for them. I almost like take over as mother. It's kind of weird, and I've always been like that. And so we were in a room of 6 in the end, but in this waiting for death room, I asked the girl, so what's wrong with me? Because I did get vaguely prodded about 3 hours after I arrived by a doctor. And she goes, oh, well, they need to run some tests before they decide what's wrong with you. Okay. Any idea when? No, sorry. Anyway, I said, well, I think it must be a perforated bowel. Oh, no, she said, you'd be in agony. Have you seen me trying to move? Literally, I could feel my bladder generate one drip of pee, and it was agony because of the change in pressure inside my stomach, right? Everything was agony. Anyway, I got sent down for a CT at 5:30, 6:30. All of us got exactly the same treatment. Now, admittedly, maybe we'd all got a lot in common, but they just gave us an antibiotic. IV antibiotic, stab, here you go, right? Okay. About 11:30, they found me a bed. Okay. Next morning, doctors came and went. Well, what's wrong with me? I don't know, they didn't say. Okay. Look at my notes, it should say, after all. All day, twice a day, you'll have more bag of antibiotics. I couldn't eat anything, couldn't drink anything. I'm sitting there, I'm in the clothes that I went in for my colonoscopy in, so I'm already like day 3 of the clothes and the pants, and I mean actual pants, not American pants. Day 4, I managed to get hold of the doctor, and I said, so what's wrong with me? Oh, you've got a perforated bowel. So I was right, okay, we could have gone with that day 1 then, because it was kind of logical. What are you going to do about it? Oh, nothing, we're going to see if it heals on its own. Okay. So they kept pumping me full of antibiotics, and a couple of days after that, they let me go home with oral antibiotics. They did literally nothing for me except make me suffer in a hospital bed away from my dogs. None of my friends thought to come and let the dogs out and look after them and feed them. And my neighbours, about 2 hours after I got to hospital, so a bit much after, kind of a bit more into the social hours of the day. Hey Liz, saw an ambulance this morning, are you alright? And I went, well, I'm at hospital at the moment. A bit unsure of what's going on, a bit worried about the dogs. And they went, oh, don't worry about the dogs. Can't find your key, because they had a key, but they couldn't find it, at least to my worries. If I come and get your key, we'll look after them. Okay. So she came and picked my key up. I got photos, videos, and because I've got an alarm on my house, I get alerts as to when it's turned on and off. They came pretty much every hour and spent time here. If they did not come just for the hour to let them out, spend 15 minutes and bugger off again, they would spend an hour here playing with them in the garden, because it was summertime and arse-numbingly hot. They spent time in the garden with them. I got videos of them playing. They fed them. They hugged them. They did everything you could ever have wanted someone to look after your dogs, except let them move in with them, because obviously they had a dog and a cat, and you would not be good with cats, would you? No, I don't think you would. But they literally every day, all day, spent time with my dogs, and they didn't think twice about doing it. They really, really didn't. They are the nicest of people. I love them to pieces. Another example of how great they are, they went out for a lunch, a pub lunch, and I didn't know that. I knew they'd gone out because she whines the moment an ant moves in Nova Scotia, so I knew they'd gone out, but not really where they'd gone, why they'd gone, none of my business, right? Anyway, a couple of hours later, ding dong. Hi Liz. Hi Jan. Are you hungry? I'm always hungry. Why? Well, we went to the pub, and when we paid for a pub lunch, but they accidentally gave us 2. So we asked them to bag it up, and we thought you might like it. It was a really lovely kind of carvery pub lunch. So basically, crap load of meat, few chips, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Now, it actually wouldn't surprise me if they bought it specifically for me, but didn't want to tell me that. But yeah, full pub lunch. Don't get me wrong, I have returned the favour in many ways. I've done plenty of things for them too, but it's not it doesn't feel like that I owe them. They're just really nice, and so for example, like they've been having their kitchen done, so that the road isn't blocked, because it's a kind of awkward to park road. I've said to them, well, park in my spot, because I only use my spot. I don't go out very often, so you can park in my, because I've got spots for 2 cars to park here. I'd be offended if you didn't. And they're really good, because they always kind of go, oh, do you mind if I park my car? And it's like, how many times have I got to tell you? I would be offended if you didn't. because I've got a spare space and I don't need it. And God forbid that the gardening man comes, because he usually parks in it even when he's not doing work for me, and it winds her up something terrible. But they have first dibs on that. They, I've always said, well, if you want to ask your visitors to park in it, it's fine. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Her mother died unfortunately last year, but while she was towards the end, Mother was brought home. Her mother was the nicest lady on this planet. She truly, truly was. Absolutely loved her mother. Really sad that she died. Cause, we will go eventually, but it was really sad because, she was a really nice lady. And, again, it was you park in my spots so that the home help lady who comes, or if your mum needs an ambulance, they can park right outside the door. They don't have to park in the road. They don't have to try and weave around your cars. That they can park there, that they can get to her. They can get, if she wants to go out and she's got a walking frame with her, she can just kind of come out the house and stagger like the meter in a little bit to your driveway. That's it. That's all she's got to manage, and all someone's got to help her through. And I wouldn't have heard anything else. My old neighbours, bugger them all, but these ones, these are the nicest people. So if you ever get good neighbours, it's worth. It's no skin off my nose if they park there or not. I really don't care. It's not like they're coming and peering through my window. It's it's the other end of the house. I don't notice. The dog notices, but then she's a whiny cow, so she'd whine anyway because they're going out. So, it doesn't matter whether they parked in my spot or not. Doesn't make a whine any less. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Last 2 bobbins. Yay! Nearly there. Look, last 2 bobbins. I love my neighbours. I do. When my fence broke down and Rory fucked off out my fence, her husband helped me. He's just as nice. He helped me put my fence back together to Rory proof it till man came to fix it. No. Yeah, it is funny how nice neighbours can really. I live alone. I do not have a boyfriend. I do not have a husband. I do not have people round, frankly. But I don't feel alone. I wouldn't anyway, but I don't feel lonely because I also know that if I went over there and went, feeling a bit shit, do you mind if I come round? They would. If they were going. When these 2 were neutered, because obviously when I got them they weren't. When these 2 were neutered, my ex-husband came and to help me take them to the vets because they'd never been in the car before, and I was a bit dubious. Couldn't really drive with 2 dogs trying to climb in my lap, so I wanted basically if he could drive, I would sit in the back of the car. My car, I don't really care, but wanted to sit in the back with the 2 dogs. He could have sat in the back with 2 dogs. They really didn't care which way around it was. But someone really probably needed to sit with them because they'd be a bit concerned. Because they had a bit of a traumatic getting here. And being in the car could be a bit much for them. good. But when it came to collect them, because these two have never been apart, because these two have utter terror at being inside a cage, part of the reason is that when I lost my old dog and I reached out to a dog charity and kind of went, yo, need more dog in my life, help me find more dog for my life. They went, yes Liz, we look at these dogs we've got, we've got an Alsatian, we've got a Lurcher, and I'm kind of going, dog's good, yeah, it's a dog, yeah, it's a dog, yeah, whatever, it's a dog. And then she went, we've got puppies. Now, it's always hard to say no to a puppy, right? I mean, if you're a dog person or a cat person, kittens, there's nothing wrong with having an adult dog. You have no problem with, picking up someone's spare. It's because, that's why you're asking the shelters and the rescues in the first place. But when you've got a chance at puppies, I opted for puppies. And I agreed to puppies after seeing a very cute picture of puppies. Yes, you were little and cute. Yes, you're not little and cute anymore. You're annoying now. But I agreed to them. Fucking named them before I found out they weren't already in the country. If she'd been up front and said, we are going to import these dogs to the UK, I probably would have said, well, I really kind of want one who's already here. We've got enough, thanks. But I'd named them. Well, of course I was having them now. So these two came from Romania. And being brought over by the people from the dog shelter in Romania to a charity over here who is basically an end of care dog shelter. They will find homes for normal dogs, but if they can't find homes for them, they will look after them forever, evermore. Amen. I expected better. So they were put in a crate together, which is kind of understandable, but it's not a very big crate, I need to point that out. It's a crate really only for one, I would have said, but they put them both in the same crate. For 72 hours, they were not let out of the crate, and they travelled in the back of a van. Why is your back wet, madam? And the dog, they were in the middle, so there was a dog below them that they weed and pooped on, but there was a dog above them that weed and pooped on them. So when we got them, they were wet, sticky and stinky, but we were also very much told, do not bath your dog for the first month until they've had a good chance to decompress from, the change of home and all the rest of it. Do not bath your dog. So Stinky Paws and Stinky Face were very much the name of the game. And I knew they'd never been in a house before because, well, I knew where they'd found them and I knew where they'd been staying, and it had been an outdoor shelter because it was summertime, and so they'd never been indoors, so we did not understand that one did not pee and poo in the house, for to them there was no house. Stairs were the biggest, scariest thing in the world, and I remember we could go upstairs but not downstairs. Meet the new Heffy. Here is new Heffy. He looks very much like old Heffy, but his trunk's not quite the same, is it? No. He's not the same, but he's close, and we love him. Yes. But I'd bought a pen to try and at least, limit the damage while I slept. It didn't work out. So I put them in the pen. Well, I tried to put them in the pen, and the screaming started, and I couldn't do it. They literally just screamed. But when I had them neuter, of course, they put them in a pen. They put them in a cage, individual cages. They'd never been apart, ever, and it was too much for them. They couldn't cope with it, and so I got a phone call just after lunch, which is very unusual. Well, it's not very unusual to get the phone call, because they usually do the, oh, your dog's been done, they'll be fine for you to come and collect about 5 o'clock usually, right? So I need to put my couch back together because somebody has pulled my couch apart, and she's small and it's brown. And, well, phone call, can you come and get your dog? Oh, yeah, if you want. It's a bit early. Dad's not out of work, so that's going to be complicated. So I asked my neighbours if there was any chance they were free. They dropped out of a meeting to help me to do that. I didn't have to, but they dropped out of a meeting to help me. We went and got the dogs, and we pulled into the car park, and I knew already why I was there. I could hear them screaming from the car park. They were just literally screaming. Weren't you? Because you're a little madam. Yes. But they were apart and they were in a cage. It was their worst nightmare. They were absolutely petrified. Pick that up before you eat it. So yes, it was an unpleasant moment. So hence we don't do cages for you two. I'm not a big person into cages, but I would have liked for these two to feel that they could be in a cage. It would have saved some of the grief to my house. It really, really would. Yes, it really, really would. These heffy hefs. Yes, you've got heffies. It's amazing how cheery he is, and she is now. She's got heffies. Yes. You weren't exactly sad before, but now you've got heffies. You're very much happy-ish, aren't you? Big waggity tail. Lots of happy Amy's. Yes, lots of little grumble happies. Yes, you are. And I don't know what you found to kick, but let's move that. Don't know where that came from, but let's get rid of that. Right. Come on, I've got one bobbin to go. I have one whole bobbin to go. Let's sort this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Snip. But yeah, I think one of the worst things about lace making is that, as we were saying, is that you don't, it's very rare they tell you how much to put on a bobbin, and you're just left guessing, and then you always end up stupidly overestimating because you don't really want to have to do joins. Now, it's not that joins are horrible or big or scary or anything. It's just a natural reaction to not want to do one if you don't have to. So, you know, you find yourself overshooting incredibly just on the off chance, and then kind of feeling really bad because you're wasting your thread. Now, again, it's not like it's, you know, extra vegetable virgin hand fed, you know, free range whatevers, but it does feel like it sometimes. Some thread is not that cheap. Now, this stuff is, I don't know how many meters you get on a thing. I don't think it says, actually. Hang on. Where's my tube of unopened? 900 meters. But if you think about it, like we were saying before, if you've got 84 bobbins, and at the end of your project, you've got, you know, end of your strip, you've got 2.5 meters of bobbin, well, you've just thrown a good chunk of that out for no good reason. Well, it's not for no good reason, but you know what I mean. You've just wasted a good chunk of that. And so it would be, you know, it would be nice to be able to have an approximation thereof. And now in theory, it shouldn't be that hard, because the distance between your dots can be a known amount. So generally you either know you know your grid size, and and Christy knows all about my trials and tribulations of grid sizes. And it is just that kind of, if you know the grid size, you know how much yarn it will take to basically traverse between the diagonals, and then you need to add a sniff to do the dancing around the pin. So in theory you should be able to reasonably accurately estimate how much to put on there, but also leave enough for you to work with, kind of thing, right? It must be possible, because it's mathematical. You know, if you've got to travel from here to here to here to here to here, you've got to do this dance here, this dance here, you know, you might have to answer some questions. So it might be that, you know, when you do your ground stitch, are you doing whole stitch or half stitch? Are you doing multiple twists? Are you, you know, because each of these things adds to the detriment count of length. But in essence, it should be feasible to calculate. Oh, shut your noise, woman! This is what I have to put up with. Problem is, I don't know whether someone's at the door and they're expecting me to fucking come out. Oh no, it might be an Amazon man for next door. Shut your face, dog! Dear Lord, you'd think I'd rip their feet off. I think I am killing my dogs. But yeah, no, so but I do believe that mathematically you must be able to reasonably accurately calculate how much thread will be required, and, you know, kind of quickly calculate each thread and decide whether it's roughly the same for all of them, or if some pairs are going to be more heavily used, such as if you have great chunks of cloth stitch, you know, be able to calculate which ones are going to be those, and, you know, maybe make allowances for that and all of those kind of things. Because I honestly believe it must be possible. The difficulty would be finding an input method for it that is practical. But it would, you know, it really would be kind of good to have a more accurate kind of progress, because, well, it just would. I mean, things like tallies would screw it up. So you'd need to know, you know, you need to be able to make sure you understand that there's a tally here and which stitch is here, and, you know, so which path it will take coming out of here and into there, and all of those kind of aspects. But I honestly believe it's got to be possible to have it work out. I mean, do it with weaving. I mean, for example, with weaving, it's it's a lot easier, I guess, but you can do it with weaving, and of course you can arguably do it with knitting and crochet. I mean, they often use a slightly different version, which is to knit one unit and then rip it out and count it, and then go, well, there's so many units, you know, if you're making, I don't know, granny squares or whatever, well, if you're making 200 of them, it's 200 times whatever we just measured. So from that point of view, kind of easier. But it has to be possible to have an estimation that is reasonably accurate of how many meters of thread, or centimeters, or whatever you want, choose inches, or whatever unit you choose, will be your required length plus a bit to have on a bobbin at the end of it. You know, there must be a way. There just must. And why are you acting like there's a bibble? Why is there a loose thread here? I think it's just being annoying. But again, this is part of the reason why there is an inch of ground at the top and the bottom, so that, you know, any weirdnesses in the first couple of rows will kind of disappear because you can hide them underneath a ribbon. That's why I made them quite so big. So. Don't normally work with my bobbins quite so short, but can't be bothered to lengthen them all, so for now, short it is. Yes, kids, I am getting hungry too. Do you think that's part of the problem, is that they're hungry and I'm hungry, so they're hoping all the men out, any man in the street has got food, because as I said, it is chicken nugget day. Madam, you are most distinctly annoying. You are. Smelly face. You are. You absolutely are. Oh. Oh. What? Yes, I know. I do. You and your waggy tail, you're going to bash something important. If you send my cup of coke flying, that could be a very short lifespan for you. You know that, right? I will kebab you and have you for tea. I will. Now don't lick my nose. You're not that cute. No, you're not. No, you're not. Absolutely not. No. Why don't you go do barky things? You're going to go and do dog things. You are going to go and do dog things. That's a good thing, right? You go and do dog things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So, we now have these, and we will lengthen some of these to a slightly more normal length of bobbin. You've just come off because I saw that. Do you think maybe doing the double twist on the half hitch is a little much for these bobbins? Which is fine. I'd rather do too much than not enough, because it is really irritating when they just fall off. She says taking one off for good measure. Tending to stick on the glue a little, which is fine. Again, very workable. It's better than it running away. Do adjust, they just sometimes don't want to, and that's the friction of the glue doing its thing. Part of the problem is if it twists round so that instead of being a kind of a 90-degree or a really strong slope, if it's really shallowly twisted so that the other twists are too near the top, it doesn't tend to want to undo. And I don't really want to force it because, well, I don't really fancy gluing 5,000 of my ball bearings back on. So that's part of the reason why that doesn't do its thing quite so much. It's funny how sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. So now we need to undo you. Saw you come undone. Yeah, it's when this comes up but the knot's actually around the other side. It doesn't tend to come undone then. It's a bit long. Sometimes I think I screw up these knots. It's not like it's a hard knot. I'm sure Nautica will tell me it's not a knot. Because of course it's a hitch, but... It's funny how sometimes they come undone just right and other times they don't. Yeah, I swear I did the same on each and every one. But they seem to go through like batches of, yeah, I'm good, no, I'm not. Sure, but maybe. at this. I saw that. You popped off. And you just watched it. And again. You just did it again. I watched you. Stop it. Badly bad bobbins. Don't make me get the sin hats out. There's no excuse for it. There really isn't. Bailey, how are you? You set for your weekend? Oh, I do apologise. Sorry, Bailey. Can't say much to that, can I, really? Well, my return to work today was kind of interesting because obviously on a Friday I usually start at 7 o'clock in the morning and I finish at 12. And I happen to know I've got a bunch of messages on my company phone. But I need to explain this. I work for Company B, but Company A was my original employer, but we are now, Company A is a client of Company B now. We got outsourced, so we are the original staff doing the original job. So we're still there doing basically the same thing, paid by someone else. And as a result, all the work that I do, all the things that I need, are Company A. Because, well, that's where the work is. That's what we're paid to do. The Company B bit, while they pay us money, we don't need to log in. We don't need to read their emails. We don't need, because, well, it'll all be on Company A. Anyway, I started this morning at 7, as I normally do. I did check Company B's phone for any messages, because she said she'd booked a meeting. No sign of meeting. Checked all day, no meetings. I only work the morning, but I checked all day anyway. Not a sign for a meeting. Now, I did happen to notice that it goes zzz a few times during the day, but some of it will seem to be, you know, I've recharged to maximum, bzz, and some of it I know was messages, but whatever it is, it can't be important, because if it was important, it would be on the actual machine with all the work on it. Got to 12 o'clock, needed to down tools, because I kind of had enough. I know that while I was talking to somebody on the phone, someone tried to ring me and I kind of ignored it because, well, I wasn't expecting any phone calls and it's not a number I recognised. I then got a text message. Oh, I hope you managed to get some work done today. You should have been returning today. I've not been able to get hold of you. Rack's been fucking working. Turns out she'd forgotten, even though she's HR, that I only work 5 hours on a Friday. Didn't notice from any of my timesheets or anything that I've always, for months, started 7 o'clock in the morning. So she tried to contact me at 9:10. But I've been at work for 2 hours by then. I was well into what I was doing. I've done like more tickets than the others have done all month so far. So I was busy. Anyway, I kind of said to her, well, I started at 7, so I finish at 12. I only have to do 5 hours on a Friday. Oh, thanks for letting me know. I shouldn't need to be telling you. It's in my contract. You just put my contract stuff on the platform. You should know. You should have, it's a basic thing. What if I didn't work Fridays? What if, because one of the people who moved over, she's part-time. And she does Monday, Tuesday and Thursday mornings, Wednesday daytime and has Friday off. So she does a whole day Wednesday, but does half days Monday, Tuesday and Thursday, but has Friday off. What if I was her? Don't you think it would have been good to know that I didn't work Fridays? It was something we fought long and hard for to keep when we moved to Company B. Because, historically, anyone who is not a direct employee of Company A does not get this perk. Company A, all of the permanent employees do an extra hour, well, half an hour, Monday to Thursday, so they can have Friday afternoon off. And it is something you can really get behind. Because staying an extra hour, half an hour, whatever it is, bear in mind we only get half-hour lunch break, so it is an hour, but it doesn't feel like an hour because you only got half an hour lunch break. So what reality is, an extra half hour Monday to Thursday. But if you get up early enough on a Friday, and there is no greater incentive than, well, if I get up early I can stop at 12, so you get the whole afternoon to yourself. To go and do all those things that, we only do Monday to Friday 9 to 5. You can do them now. You could go and do them on your Friday afternoon. Now, admittedly, everyone else around here has Friday afternoon off because they work for the same company, but in principle, you can go to the doctors, you can have a hospital appointment, you can set off on holiday earlier, you can go down the shops without having to fight all the OAPs on a Saturday who had all freaking week to go, but wait till the weekend to go and to buy their one loaf of bread, right? You get to go during a quieter patch. You get to go, on your way home from work or whatever. Well, it's quieter, isn't it? And it brings happiness to the soul, because, of course, now your weekend is 2.5 days, not 2. And you can do, you can put the washing and the laundry and shit on a Friday, do some stuff on Saturday, and, actually rest on a Sunday. Because you did it all on Friday. You don't have extra stuff that didn't fit on a Saturday because you've already done it. So, you will prize half-day Fridays out of our cold, dead hands. Because, like everything, it's really hard to go back. I think if I ever had to go and work somewhere else and work Friday afternoons, I don't know what I'd do with myself. I've never been one of those people, though, that an interview, you get lots of people who join and, I asked for special this, I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to do this, and although the job said this, I didn't really want to do it, so I'm not going to be. And we had one, just after Company A took over the company I worked for, because it was a true buyout. We had a guy join, and he was supposed to be doing what I'd been covering while they were looking for him. So he was supposed to be backup dude. Almost the first sentence out of his mouth to me was, I'm not doing backups, I don't want to. That's your job, dude. And then they let him. Now, I've never had the balls to do that, and I kind of wish I had. I did at one company asked if I could start and I could do 8 till 4, not 9 to 5. And I did get that. But to be honest, that's really a minor concession. But yeah, this lot, half-day Fridays. First few Fridays, I had no idea what I was going to do with myself. Until I discovered all the things that I can do on a Friday afternoon that I can't do normally because they're shut. And then I was happy. And I was sold on the idea. And yeah, I swear, if there is nothing else holding you more to a job than the idea of half-day Fridays. It'd be nice if I could do an even extra hour and just not do Fridays, but I'll go with half-day Fridays. I can accept half-day Fridays. Actually, what would be great is if I could do an extra hour Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and have Wednesday afternoons off as well, because I hate Wednesdays for some reason. I suck at Wednesdays. Wednesdays just don't work in my head. They're just like... They're like a 3D shape that, on paper that one of those weirdy drawings where it can't actually happen in reality, but on a piece of paper it works. That's what Wednesdays are like for me. They just don't fit. I think we all hate working most days because we're not Star Trek. One of the things that always made me laugh was that in Star Trek the original series, there was money, but it wasn't really talked about. In Next Gen, they'd done away with money, completely, and you only ever bettered to, you know, help the Empire and yourself. In DS9, there was gold press platinum. But again, lots of things seem to be free. Like, to be fair, even in today's world, I'm going to kebab that dog one day. If you are dragged away from home and placed on an oil rig or such, i.e. on a vehicle, you know, obviously not a spacecraft because we don't do that so much, but, you know, those on the spacecraft, they do not have to pay for their room on the spacecraft. Chances are, even in today's society, they would not necessarily pay for core meals. There would probably be extras they would pay for, so the equivalent of, I wish for a Stradivarius violin out of the replicator, you'd have to pay for that, you'd have to have credits. But actually, even in next gen, no worries, Christy. I think even in next gen there is talk of kind of replicator credits, but you know, they're not paid, but they do not have money. So, you know, if they want to have a house, they don't buy a house. But then what dictates which houses you can have? I'm sure there will be a level of, you know, your grade at the academy or your grade of job entitles you to a bigger, smaller, you know, nicer, whatever house. Because, well, that's just kind of how the world works. I really, really doubt that, you know, Ensign whatever who's just straight out of the academy could buy something the size of Buck House, and, you know, Captain Picard would get put in one of those, like, pillbox hospitals in Japan where, you know, you pretty much got room for a pair of pants and a pair of socks and that's it. You know, I don't think that's going to be the way that works. So, you know, I would love to know more about that, but of course they always glossed over it because that was part of the reason, was that in theory there was no money. And I don't think society really almost can function without a level of one of these is worth some of those. So, for example, if you wanted a net curtain, it may not look much, but look how long it's going to take me to make it. Whereas, if you wanted me to cook you scrambled egg on toast, not half as long, right? And arguably slightly less skill. Now, obviously, there are things you cook that do take lots of skill and take lots of time and expensive ingredients and. So I'm not dissing cooking because, well, I'm not. But I do think it is a little bit. So you would argue that you couldn't say, you know, one breakfast equals one net curtain. That wouldn't really fit. It would have to be more than that. Now, it's not that it's hard, of course, but it does take a lot of time. And this was a joke my co-worker made, is that he showed me his bay window, which is like 8 windows, and said, how much? And I went, well, as it's, you know, with the squares, because that's what we were doing at the time. Well, if it takes roughly, you know, 18 months to do a window, it's going to take like 9 years to make you your bay window curtain. So, you've, I don't know, 9 years salary. So, you know, you're looking at, you know, let's say, even if I go for a fairly low salary of like 20 grand a year, which, you know, over here is low to middle. After all, it is a skilled job. But bear in mind, minimum wage is about 18.5, so it's not, you know, that much more. Well, you're talking about 100, you know, you're talking, you know, kind of £180,000 for a net curtain for your bay window. You don't mind, do you? And he kind of went, when you put it like that, it is surprising. And to be honest, it's the same if you do too much thinking anyway. So here in the UK, if you go for a mortgage, you generally can't get a mortgage for more than half your salary. That will cost each month more than half your salary. Now, depending on what the exchange rates are, that varies a little bit. So, over the last... Will you stop licking me? I'm not a fucking popsicle. They do this occasionally. They start licking me like I'm a meat popsicle, and it drives me up the wall after a while. Don't mind a few licks, but there's a few licks and you know, we love you mum kind of thing. And then there's trying to get through to the bone, you know. But if you work out, will you stop licking me? I have told you this. No, Rory, lie down. You lie down too. You're not licking me, she is. But if you think over a 25-year mortgage, you'll have earned 25 years worth of salary, and inevitably your salary will go up. But even if you work on today's prices and 25 years at this price, that the mortgage does not go up each year, you know, so you have fixed payments. Just stop trying to clamber all over me. And, you know, 25 times your current year's salary. So if you buy a house, which is usually 3 times your salary, as a maximum. So if you earn 20 grand, you can have a 60 grand mortgage. But you will have worked, and for 25 years by the time you pay that off, you will have earned, think about it, 25 times 20, £450,000. Nearly £500,000. Where does the rest go? Because at no point were you sitting around, you know, bathing in money. The answer is all the bills. But when you actually think, I mean, you know, I'm 53. If I worked out how much money I have earned to date, if I could, you know, trawl through all my, you know, records of old and go back and find out, you know, well, I earned this here and that there, and, you know, I worked for them for so long, and, you know, I got this bonus, or I got this payout, or I did a bit of a side job there and got paid for this. I would dread to think how much I've been paid. Now I'm 53. Because I start working at 16. I dread to think how much that actually works out as. And I think most people would. It don't half make you look at it a bit different, because obviously usually your mortgage is quite... I mean, when I took out my mortgage was 7.99. And I got a really good deal, because it was like 8 something. Well, of course, until last year, mortgage rates around here were like 0.5%. So everyone had really big mortgages because they could afford to pay them off. Well, last year, the mortgage interest rate was 6.99. Oh my God, the tears. Yeah. Well, I paid that on an 11 grand salary. So, you know, it is sometimes funny to think of the amount of money that people have earned and what they've got to show for it, and, you know, all of those kind of things, because sometimes it is quite surprising how much money has disappeared. And, you know, I mean, I've got loads of crafting equipment and yarn and things and stuff and weaving looms and 2 houses and, you know, a whole pile of stuff to show for mine. Whereas you look at, say, pick on poor old ex-husband. He's got a house he rents, a car he owns. I've got a car as well, by the way. But a car he owns, the house he rents, and he doesn't even own all the furniture in the house. And it's kind of like, but he earns more than me. Quite a bit more than me. Always has. But I own 2 houses and a car. I have no mortgage. Paid it. He has to rent. How does that work? Yeah. By the way, I am also aware that the very first inch of this strip is a bit more than an inch, but close enough. Gate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like that. Get that side. And the other side. Well, my lovely friends, it's kind of rapidly heading towards 5:30, and so I am going to call it quits for today. But we now have a full range of bobbin attachments to our lace, so that I may take a picture of the actual lace and not just bobbins for a change. So let me do that. Yeah, it's probably a bit of a shitty picture. Let's have a look. Yeah, it's a bit of a shitty picture, Liz. Let's try harder. Try harder. Above. Where's that coming out like? Oh, that's a bit better. That's a great dog hair in it, though. Can you not whine, animal? You're really not. But I thank you all for joining me. I will be back in around 28 to 29 hours time, so late tomorrow evening, for it is Saturday, and we shall be kicking off and stonking past inch number 1, because we're kind of part way there already. So hopefully we will stonk down and start the spidery bit at the top and kind of get in the flow. I encourage you to, if you're new, for all the nice people who joined today, if you are new here, all my past videos get uploaded to YouTube, which I will do next. And by the way, for those who are paying attention, when I said I wrote an app to do it for me because it was a lot quicker, holy shit, is it just? I never really, I mean, it's not something you think about. If you've ever uploaded a video to YouTube, you probably did it through the YouTube website, and you uploaded it, and it took a while, not that long, but it took a while, and it seemed to go perfectly reasonable speed. When I upload through my app, every available byte to go up is used, and it does, to the point that other things don't get a look in, and it will almost start reporting I can't contact that website because it's too busy uploading my stream. I can honestly tell you that some of the long streams, like Friday afternoon ones, for example, if I've done three and a bit hours, that usually takes me 2 to upload. If it takes me much more than an hour and a little bit today, I will be surprised. It really does hammer it hard, which is great because it means it doesn't take so long. which then means when I want to post and say the video uploaded, bloody blah, go and have a look, it's a lot earlier in the evening and not 2, 3 in the morning. Now, that doesn't mean to say I haven't gone to sleep and woken up in the middle of the night and gone, oh shit, it must have finished by now and posted it. But it is very nicely well done. I mean, obviously, I've written it 100% for me, so it joins my YouTube playlist. But it could, you know, other than the joining of the playlist thing, it could very much do somebody else's. I'm not going to publish it, but it really is quite efficient at the old uploading of video stuff. If you don't behave, children, you will not get nuggets. Do you want nuggets? You do want nuggets. Then you need to behave. Ow! Don't headbutt me. She has a very... If Rory wants a hug, he will sit with you so you can kiss the top of his head. If she wants a hug, she will thrust her nose in your face onto your kind of mouth and expect you to smooch it. And if she headbutts you, it's a little bit invasive, isn't it? You're a little bit uncalm. Just a little bit too hyperactive. Have he got your heffy? Has he? You're going to bite my fingers? Okay. He hasn't got your heffy. He's here. Look. He hasn't got heffy. He's being a good boy. You would like hugs, though, wouldn't you? But we would like our nuggets, I think I'm being told. Yes, you want your nuggets. I know you do. She certainly wants her nuggets. I swear it's like she's on frigging Blue Smarties. You're Blue Smarty kid, you are. Yes, you. Trample, trample, trample. She also does the pity paws thing, where she goes with her paws, which is quite amusing. And he looks at her like she's grown a head, which is even funnier because she's doing the pity pity paws, and it is literally tippity tippity tip, and she does pity pity paws, and he does. What are you doing? Why are you doing that? That's daft. That's energy. Yes, you're daft, aren't you? You're lovable but daft. But you're a big boy now. I swear you are still growing. I do. I swear you are still growing. I do love you muchly. I do. Oh, and you get... Oh. But yes, I shall be back 10, 11 o'clock tomorrow night. When I've super glued my desk back together. Because the dogs keep leaning on it and have cracked it. And it's plastic. So I will glue that back together. But yes, I shall be back tomorrow night. I would love it if you would join me. If you cannot, it will be posted on YouTube. I've noticed that that Twitch is not sending me notifications of a lot of the people that I like to watch going live. Hence, we do also use Discord as a notification. So please use Discord if you feel you are not getting your notifications, because at least it does. I see it pop up in there because I get them that way. But yes, I shall see you hopefully tomorrow. I'm going to quickly look and see if there's anyone making stuff on Twitch that I would normally consider kind of friendly and continuing on what we're doing. But lots of them I think are playing games. So... I don't know what you're playing. Dreamlight Valley. I don't know what you're doing. Let me quickly see what this one's doing, because it's not very clear and they've only just started the stream. So it says they're making. See what they're making. Bye bye, Bally. I don't know. I don't know what this person's doing. I honestly can't answer. But I'm going to hand you over to Silver of Dragon, who may or may not be doing some lace making. He usually does. So let's kick you over to see Silver of Dragon.